Hi everyone, today I'm going to cover the topic that is Oracle RAC migration to Nutanix and with zero downtime. Now here I'm using a sample environment but that is on ESXi hosts with Oracle 12.2.0.1 version and Windows 2012 R2 VMs. So here I'm taking a specific case but this can be generalized as well for other environments. So the objective is to do the migration from here to here. I'm using a 2-node rack, but the same can be applied for 3-node or 4-node. It doesn't matter because you can do rack migration one at a time, like VM one at a time. And here there are two shared storages, like one which was in ESX and another it is in Nutanix, which is the target. But it can be an external shared storage also, or you can use one shared storage which can be migrated to Nutanix as well. So it will cover both the processes. It's the same thing. Now, as a preparation, you need to have a public network and private network, which is exactly same as in ESXi, and it need to have a connectivity also. Here I'm using 10.10.32 range for my public network, where it will have the VIP, scan IP, everything. And the private network, which is my range is 10.00 range, which will be my interconnection like the ASM and other things. It's private IP basically. So, and of course, I have to prepare my shared storage as well here in my Nutanix environment. Now, I have to establish the connectivity between these networks. This is a mandatory thing, as you know, like because we are doing one at a time. If you are doing together, like with downtime, you're shifting both the VMs, then of course we don't need this communication to be established because we will be using the same public network and private network within the Nutanix environment itself. But in my case, I'm going to do one by one at a time. And also the shared storage, which will be attached to both the nodes through the iSCSI. For me, I'm using iSCSI initiator and having my connectivity using iSCSI. So now the first process will be to add, like I have already made this physical reachability between the nodes, and then I will be adding my shared storage as raw disk mapping into both the nodes. This is my first step. Like I will be adding to both the nodes. This iSCSI disk will be mapped to both the nodes using ROM, and it will be added as raw mapping. I'll go through those steps later. Now, once you add it, then the next process will be adding it to ASM. So you can either use ASM command utility or using GUI you can do the same thing. Like you have to add it as a candidate disk, because once you add it as a raw mapping, then you'll be able to identify it as a candidate disk and add to the existing data disks. Like here it can be multiple also. Like in my case, I have taken only one disk, but it can be multiple disk with multiple partitions also. It's the same thing because it doesn't for ASM it need to detect the disk, and ideally it should be of the same size, because if you are using, for example, for data, if you are using 3 disks, then prefer to use the same 3 identical disks for when you are adding it to Nutanix as well, because otherwise there may be mismatches, like maybe while you are evicting the existing disk, you might face some issue. So once you add it, you need to wait for ASM to rebalance the storage, and once it is rebalanced, then you can remove the old disk from ASM. So removing the old disk means you have to use ASM command, or you can use the GUI to evict these nodes, and I will show the process as well. So once you evict the this particular shared storage, the ESXi storage will no longer be required. So you can even remove the connectivity, remove the OS connectivity also from this one, so that the VMs will not be dependent on this shared storage inside ESXi. So now your ASM will be completely the shared storage within Nutanix. Now after this, you can use Nutanix move to migrate your VM one at a time. Like for example, in this case, I have taken node 2, I have migrated to Nutanix. But once you migrate, the RAC will definitely be down. Once you complete all the process, the RAC will be down. Why? Because there is the private network connectivity issue will be there for sure, and even the network mapping will be different. So due to which it will not be running, because what happens is like when you migrate, Nutanix will create new adapters, and this new adapters and what it will do is like it will disable the existing network adapters. So for example, in my case, the old network adapters name was Ethernet 0 and Ethernet 1. Ethernet 0 I was using for the public, and Ethernet 1 I was using for private. So maybe in other scenarios, like maybe it will be named as public and private, or whatever. So what Oracle does is, in Oracle RAC, these names are mapped. So when you migrate these VMs and it cannot find this name, because it will rename it to something like Ethernet and Ethernet 2 or something like that, like local area network, then what happens is like Oracle will not be able to identify these adapters. So when Oracle is not able to identify the adapter, it will not be able to start up the RAC. So this is what happens. So to solve this problem, you have two options. Like one option is to use the OS itself and change the network configuration. And the second one is using Oracle RAC OIFCFG commands. So this OIFCFG commands will help you to remap this. But in my scenario, I'm going to demonstrate using the changing from the OS itself. Like what I'm going to do is like I'm going to disable and uninstall the old adapters and then rename the new adapters to the old names. So that is pretty much easier compared to using OIFCFG and remapping. So this is one of the options. Like of course you can do either way. It doesn't matter. Ultimately the objective is to map it to the names. Now once you remap it, then what will happen is like you can establish the connectivity between the Oracle RAC services. So you can start up the Oracle RAC services, and once you start up the CRS services, then automatically the ASM and Oracle, like in my case, it is ORCL is my database. So if you have multiple databases, cluster databases, all those databases will start coming up, and the listener and all the services. So now it has become a distributed cluster, a distributed Oracle RAC cluster between the ESXi and Nutanix. So one node is running on ESX and the second node is running on Nutanix. So this will be an extended cluster with the ASM here. So here right now the ASM is connecting to this shared storage on Nutanix, and it will be up and running. Now if you have a network latency issue between this private network, then of course you might see that some services are down, and that is because of this latency, in which in my case is evidently there. But of course in a production environment, because this is a test environment and it is all using VMs, so that is why you can see there is a huge latency between these private networks and public networks. Now the next step will be, I'll be shifting the RAC node 1, which is I have to do it exactly as what I did before using Nutanix move, and then at that instant the ASM will be shifted only to the node which was migrated before, because now ASM here the RAC services are down, so ASM will no longer be available in the node 1. Now after this process, you have to do the same, repeat the same step, that is either OS network configuration changes or Oracle network configuration changes on the Ethernet names. Once you do that, then automatically you can start up the Oracle RAC services and the ASM. So here now the complete that ASM and the Oracle database will be 100% in these two VMs within Nutanix. Now we don't require this connectivity anymore. So it is within this shared storage within this environment. So you can just disable that, and now you have 100% your environment ready, and you can decommission the old network connection and decommission these VMs completely, like once everything is tested and finalized. So this is the process I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to change the disks in each of these RAC VMs. Okay. So first, let me go to disk management. Since I have already mapped the disks, yeah, this is my original disk and this is the new one. So let me just make it online first. Initialize the disk. Okay, now it has detected as unallocated. Now I'm going to create a simple volume. If you want, I can even partition it, but in my case, I don't need to partition. I'm just going to use it as it is. Do not format. This is very important. Okay. Now it has detected it as raw disks. Now what I'll do, I'll go to the second VM, and there also I'll go to disk management. Go to disk management. I can see this. Now I'll mark it online. Okay, so just I will refresh it. Okay, now I'll mark it online. Okay, so it has detected as E drive, as a drive, but it's raw. So I'll just change drive letter, and I'll remove the drive letter because I don't need a drive letter at all. So now I have detected these two. Now it will become a candidate. So let me go back to so here I'm going to use ASM tool in graphical mode. ASMTOOLG. So it will be graphical. I can do it in command mode also. So let me add. Okay, here is the candidate disk, which is hard disk 1 partition 1. So I'm going to take that. This is not stamped as such. So I'm going to put it as the data. Okay, so it automatically taken it as ORCL disk data 0. So I'll just add it now. Okay, now that will come as a candidate disk. Now the next step is using ASMCA. I will add it to the existing data. Just to rebalance. So I'll go to the disk group. We'll select my disk group, and I can add the disk. So it will show eligible because we have already done it. Actually, you can do it from here also. The stamping of the disk, you can do it from here also, but I just did it using ASM tool, and then now you can just click Okay, so it will add the disk to ASM data disk. Similarly, you can add all your disk groups, like all the disks, the respective disks to the respective disk groups. While adding, it will also do a rebalancing. So once this rebalancing is done, now we know that our disk, the newly added disk, which is from Nutanix, is ORCL disk data 0. So once I'm done with it, then I can use the same tool to remove the other disk, that is ORCL disk data 3. I can remove it so that it will be purely on Nutanix. So now I can see that it is successfully completed, and now the total disk size is showing to be 180 GB, that is with the 2 disks. So now I can remove the other old disk. So for that, I log in as SysASM. Let me list the disks. Okay. So this is my newly added disk, and this is my old disk. So that means it has been added as data underscore 0002. So let me use command to remove it. Data 0002. Okay. So it will remove the disk. It will take time, so I've been checking the status continuously using this command. Select name, total, MB free. So using this, I can keep track on the progress. So if you see, the data is being moved from this 002 to 0. So that is the process which is happening. So every time the space is getting freed up from data 002. So I have to come back again after some time to see the progress. After a long wait, now the data has been successfully moved to data 0. So the old data 002 is no longer there. It is a former disk. So now you can see. We'll check now. Yes. Now it's a 90 GB with the current disk. So now from the operating system side, you can remove it, make it offline, and remove the same. So this was the disk, so I can remove it if I want. I can make it offline. and we'll check the ASM status once again just to ensure that it is correct. Yes, it's perfect. I can make it offline from both servers and remove it. So first of all, I'm going to verify my existing environment, which is in ESXi. I have two RAC servers, Oracle RAC VMs, which is on Windows 2012. So my existing Nutanix environment, actually, it's not a Nutanix production environment. It's VMs as well. It is a community edition, which is hosted again on ESX. So you'll not get the same performance as in a production Nutanix nodes. Now I'm going to connect to the, I've connected to the first node, and we'll check the RAC status. We'll check the CRS status. So please note some of the services will be offline, but no worries, because I'll just show those offline services, which is not a mandatory ones, because it is mostly for the proxy and some management. I'm not using management DB, so that's why that is also offline. But otherwise, everything is online. Now I'm checking the ASM configuration. So here I can see both the nodes, which is on both the instances are up and running, and also on this group, it's both are in mounted status. If you want, you can also use connect to the ASM instances and verify. You can connect using sysASM and verify that. So here is my second node. So I'm using this to get the Oracle network configuration. Like actually using this, I can oifcfg commands. I can change the network configurations, like in case if you add a new network card, or you can do all that. But as you can see, that is the registry where the particular name, the Ethernet name, which is registered to the cluster interconnect, as well as for the public. Cluster interconnect means private. So here if you see my names are Ethernet 1 and Ethernet 0. So this name is being hard coded, that, and it will have that particular devices. So you might need this information for later. That is, you need to know which adapter, which exact adapter need to be, should be in PowerShell. So you can see that the Ethernet 0 is here. It will show all the devices in the system. So Ethernet 1 is here. So if you want to do it through registry, you can do it through that, because the device ID is already there. So you can identify the device with that, but that is a little way complex. So I won't, personally, I will not prefer that. Now, let's start the migration using Nutanix move. So here I'm going to migrate the node 2. It will be very straightforward migration process using Nutanix move, selecting source and target. So here is my VM. I have to map it to the same network as I had demonstrated in the presentation. I have to map it to the same network. I've created exactly same networks in the Nutanix also, as in the ESX. So this might take some time, so I will just pause it. I will provide the admin credentials now, and no extra special configurations required. It's a standard process. Now I will start the migration. It will take a long time for me, so I'm going to pause and continue once it is complete. Because in my case, it will take longer time because I'm running on Nutanix C, that is on VM again. So it is going to take a long time. Migration is completed. Now it's ready to cut over. So I'm going to do a cutover now. So here now it's getting its devices ready. So mostly it is the related to the network adapter. It is creating the new network adapters and disabling the old ones. But as I told you before, the old name will still remain as a disabled network adapter. So you will not be able to use that name directly. Now it's all set. Now I can log into the console and check for the network adapters, and then I will once I'm confirmed that everything is set, and I will check the names. Then I will log in through remote desktop. As you can see, the public network was Ethernet 0 and the private network was Ethernet 1. Now it has changed itself to a new name with a new driver as a new adapter. So that is as Ethernet and Ethernet 2, Ethernet space 2. Now I'm going to find the old adapters, and which is hidden because it is already disabled, but the name retains. So I'm going to uninstall those adapters from the device manager. The first two adapters are those disabled network adapters, which I'm going to uninstall. Before uninstalling, let me show you what happens if I try to rename it to the old name. Now it will accept these names. Once we do this, we can start the Oracle cluster services, and everything will be back online, including the ASM, because it will be able to communicate. I tried to ping both private and public IP of the other server, other node, but I noticed that there is a huge lag. This will not stop us from proceeding, but definitely this is going to have an impact on the cluster rack performance. This is because it is my lab network, and it is a VM inside VM inside VM. Once the CRS starts, then I can actually wait, but I'm just going to execute a few more commands to, ensure that the services are coming online or not. It's showing that it's already in the intermediate state, so I can execute the same command and check it after some time, so that I can see mostly that it will be online. Now it's running, it's online, so it's perfect. After waiting for a while, I'm going to check the ASM on node 2, the status. So now I got a confirmation that it's already mounted. Let me open services to check the Oracle database status. Yes, it is also starting automatically. Now I'll verify the ASM using ASMCA from the other node, just to ensure that it is up and running. Now since ASM is running on both and the database is also started, I think we can continue with the migration of the other node. Now you can repeat the same step to do the migration.